Welcome back to episode 146 of the ATD Baseball Podcast. It's the final week of the regular season. Insane. Season went by so quick, but there's going to be a lot of fan bases that are going to be heartbroken this week because we have wild card literally I can't I put the emphasis on wild like in like all caps with a bunch of exclamation marks. Like we have wild card races that are gonna go down the stretch here in the final week of this season. One American League team. There's only one American League team that has clinched a postseason spot. That is the Toronto Blue Jays. The other five spots are up for grabs right now. But um, we have stuff that we want to discuss today. If you can hear it in my voice, I'm not 100%, but I'm okay. I'm okay. We'll grind this out. But before we get into everything, and I do have a lot today. Like I know I talk a lot, but today I have a lot of shit on my mind today. So uh, buckle up because this is gonna be a lot. But before we get into everything, Kyle, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. I'm very excited about today's episode. We're talking all time great. Kind of foreshadowing a little bit. All time great in Clayton Kershaw. You kind of touched on that a little bit last week on our Instagram. Can't wait to talk about that. My Yankees, they're doing pretty good. I can't complain too much. And then, of course, the main topic of this episode, the AL Central, man. What a shit show that's turned into. But anyway, to kind of recap everything, I'm doing well, man. How are you?
I'm doing well, and and a wild card too, because that's turned into a shit show too. Well, it's been a shit show for like a month now, but
Yeah.
it's real. It's reeling its ugly head again, and we'll mention it later. But to answer your question, you know, it was a long week last week.
Hmm.
I'll touch more upon this when I get into Kershaw and the Dodgers, but just my emotions were all over the landscape last week. I'm talking happiness to frustration to tears, everything. And I think that's why I got sick. But um,
That's baseball for you, man.
yeah, exactly. I went through all the emotions last week, and I was so drained when I got home from work yesterday. I didn't want to do shit. Because on top of all the emotions that I felt with my team, and specifically one player, I also had to work too. And I hadn't done a 7 game homestand. We haven't had a 7 game homestand like that in a while. The last
Hmm.
couple of weeks it had been 3 games here, 3 games there, but we hadn't had a big chunk homestand like that in a while. So again, I'll touch on it more, but it was a special weekend. The Dodgers reached 4 million fans for the first time in their franchise's history, and we got a cool commemorative pin, employees only, I may add.
Wow.
They were not handing these out to the fans on Sunday afternoon. So this is an exclusive pin that only employees got at Dodge Stadium, and they gave me a nice note too. So that was very nice of them. And of course, I have it right here with me, but Clayton Kershaw, of course, it was his weekend. We'll touch on that later, but I had to show it off. Saturday night, it was his 3,000 strikeout bobblehead giveaway. Look at this beauty right here. Fantastic. Oh, yes. Look at that. You see? It has his name, it has 3,000 strikeouts. Fantastic. Look at that. That's gorgeous. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. I will not say how much I had to pay for this. Let's just put it to you this way. I'm happy to do it because it looks like this is going to be Clayton Kershaw's final bobblehead, at least while he's playing.
Yeah.
But it was over $150. I'll put it to you like that.
Okay. There we go.
I think this is the most money I've spent on a bobblehead. I think so. So
Yeah.
you can do the math. Wasn't 100 and it wasn't 150. I'll leave it at that. But happy to do it. But we'll touch on that everything a little bit later. I'm very excited for all the stuff that I have. I've been holding off on this for like a couple days now. But some other things to get to first. We're gonna start with the American League Central. Holy shit! Uh, you know, so in case you've been living under a rock, as we go into the final week of the regular season, The Tigers and the Guardians are separated by only one game in the standings for first place. Now, you're probably saying, well, what's the big deal with that? Like, yeah, there's two teams that are fighting it out. Hold on a second. September 1st, the Guardians were not even in the conversation of, let alone a playoff spot. They certainly weren't being talked about winning this division. But an all-time collapse from the Detroit Tigers have now put the Guardians a game behind them for first place. And by the way, Detroit has to go to Cleveland with a 3-game series starting tomorrow, with all the momentum on Cleveland's side. And Progressive Field's going to go crazy this week because they have an opportunity to not only get into the playoffs, but steal this division away from a Tigers team that up until I want to say maybe the middle of the summer was the clear cut best team in the American League. And
Absolutely.
now there's a scenario here where they might not win the division and they might not even make it into the postseason. And this will be an all time collapse. We have the numbers here. September 1st, the Guardians were not even in second place. The Detroit Tigers had a 9-game lead over then the second place Kansas City Royals. They fell off, and then the Guardians were 10.5 games. And I was listening to Ken Rosenthal this morning on his the show that he does, his little segment on Foul Territory, the YouTube channel. At one point, and I wish I had the specific date here, but at one point, the Guardians were 15.5 games out of first place. Insane. And now here we go into the final week. Um, is this more about the Tigers' collapse, or is this more about the Guardians playing good baseball? Because to me, I think the answer is Tigers' collapse here. Because the Tigers just have not looked good at all in the last couple weeks. They're still on a losing streak. They're on a 6-game losing streak right now. They're 1-9 in their last 10 games. That's incredible. That's crazy. Um, is this more about the Tigers or the Guardians? Because I think this is about the Tigers just completely falling flat on their faces.
Yeah. So first and foremost, I I want to say I think it's a mix of both, but there's a huge thing here. Okay, the Tigers were up 15 and a half games, dude. 10 and a half on at the beginning of September, which makes me think that those 15 and a half games that Ken Rosenthal was talking about, although we don't have the specific date, we have to think it was close to the beginning of September, given what those look like, those two numbers. So overall, I want to say it's more about the Tigers, but I also don't want to completely cut out the Guardians here, man. What a hell of a job they've been doing. My God, man. I mean, they go from sellers at the deadline, and they look like they can't even sniff the postseason. Like, dude, as of right now, I'm looking at the wild card standings, okay? And the Yankees are up 4 games. Real quick side note, this is just me being biased. The Yankees have the second best record in the American League, by the way, and they're in the top wild card spot. But anyway, 4 games up on second place Boston, which separates 3 games between them and the Yankees. And then Houston and Cleveland are tied for that last wild card spot. Okay. So Cleveland's like, dude, there's a chance one of these two teams won't even make the playoffs, which is crazy to think about. Um, but Cleveland, man, dude, like they've just been on a different level. They just seem like they can't lose. And we talk about it all the time. Those are the scariest teams come October. And if the Guardians can keep this up and they keep steamrolling, dude, I like their chances against anybody in the postseason just because of the way they've been playing. They have a chip on their shoulder. There's no way in hell they should have even been here. But the pitching has come together. The bullpen's lights out, and that lineup, dude, they're finding a way to get hits in every single clutch and situational hitting possible. They're doing it. And I think that's like such a insane thing to think about, and props to the Guardians, man. The front office, it overall, it is just a very well run organization. So flipping to the Tigers side here, man, what the hell is going on? Like since the beginning of April and up until they've been my World Series pick, not the winner, but they've been in the World Series in every one of my predictions since the beginning of the season. And I was looking like a genius there for a while. There was no way the Tigers could collapse. They had that big of a lead. Going into September, we thought to ourselves, okay, yeah, that division's done. We don't even need to talk about it. Why do you think we haven't mentioned the AL Central? Because this team has just been steamrolling since the beginning of April. And all of a sudden, man, excuse me, Screwball has that scary little injury thing there that was going on for a little, and like the team just can't get hits. The bullpen's seemingly screwing games left and right. I mean, just overall, and like the starters, they seem gassed. It's just overall, it's such a crazy thing to think about. But this is why I love baseball, man. It's so unpredictable. You truly never understand, like you never know what could happen. And I want to say this, and I think this is such a crazy thing to think about. I want to I want to look it up. And now I'm not an advanced stats guy. Like this isn't something that I can just know off the whim. I have to do some research. I want to know how how long has a team stayed in first place in a division, okay? Basically all season long, and then collapsed at the end of the year and didn't even make the postseason. I want to know if there's like a record for that.
I think it's the 2007 Mets.
Is that what it is?
I think that's what it is because they remember it was different back then. You didn't have all these playoff spots like you did now.
Correct.
It was just the one wild card spot, and that was it.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Mets went from winning their division up until like the second week of September, then they collapsed and the Phillies won. I think that's what happened, if I'm not mistaken. We do
We'll
have
see.
to do research on that, but I do think the 2007 Mets were the team that did that, and
Mm-hmm.
we'll touch on it later. The Mets are doing it again, but yeah, this is unprecedented, and like you
Yeah.
mentioned, like you had them as your World Series pick and representative in the American League all season. I switched my pick at the All Star break from the Rangers to the Tigers because I thought they were just too damn good um, in this American League, and two, and I heard again, I heard Ken Rosenthal say this too, and I didn't even look up their schedule until he mentioned it.
Mm-hmm.
Their schedule does not get any easier either this last week because they were messing around playing with their food and not playing good baseball this month. Their last 6 games of the season are against two teams that are now fighting for a spot. And by the way, they're not in your park either. They're all on the road. The Cleveland Guardians, you got to go to Cleveland, and then you got to go to Boston. That is fighting for one of those last spots as well. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a scenario here where the Tigers don't even make the playoffs at all, which was insane to think 8 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
8 weeks ago. That's crazy to me.
No, absolutely. No, you're 100% right. And the things too that don't help them out. Their last three series, okay? We'll start back when they played the Yankees, okay, which was 2 weeks ago. They won 2 out of 3 against New York, and then that's when their losing streak happened, man. They lost 2 out of 3 against Miami. That was when Screwball had his scare, and then they got swept by Cleveland. They got swept by Atlanta, and now today's an off day, and then they start the series that you had just mentioned. So Miami and Atlanta, you gotta take care of business there. There is absolutely no reason why you should be getting swept, and to be honest with you, there's no reason why you should be losing those series to those two teams. I understand Cleveland, I get it, division foe. They're hot. It is what it is. But those two other series, man, that's where they didn't do themselves any favors. And it is going next week, man. This episode next week, we are going to touch on the AL Central again, and we're going to touch on all these divisions, obviously, because we're going to know what it looks like, and what our October baseball seedings look like. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out. But this is a division that I am going to be, if I'm not watching my Yankees, I'm watching this series coming up between Detroit and Cleveland.
I agree, and I'm so glad you mentioned that. This week Thankfully, the Dodgers are on the road, so I don't have to like go to work or anything. I can actually watch these games. Um, I'm watching Cleveland, Detroit this week, and then I'm watching the Mets and whoever they play this week too, because I want to see this, and I'm
Mhm.
watching Cincinnati too. So
Yep.
that there's this is good for baseball. It sucks if you're a Tigers fan and all the fans of these other teams, but this is good for baseball. You have teams that are collapsing, and you have teams that are rallying around each other.
Yep.
And not to mention too, this Guardians team, they are not in like, if you look at all the stats of like their of offensive like stats and stuff, the Guardians are nowhere near like the top of
No.
any of these stats, like home runs, batting average. Like they're near the middle to the bottom, and yet
Mhm.
they're somehow finding a way to win these games, and it's crazy. It's
Mhm.
incredible. And by the way, they lost their best closer to a gambling
Yeah.
investigation at the beginning of in the middle of the summer too, which is crazy. But yeah, this is unprecedented, and there's a scenario, man, where the Tigers don't even get in at all, and I think there's gonna have to be some real questions answered about this team and their management and philosophy here, because I'm sorry, like that can't happen.
No.
That cannot happen.
None at all.
To have a big lead like that on September 1st and to be out of it completely, there's a problem. There's clearly a problem somewhere in the organization.
Huge problem.
Yeah, and I do feel for the Tigers fan too,
Oh,
because
absolutely.
listen, they came out of nowhere last year,
Hmm.
had a good August and a good September, kind of like what the Guardians are going through right now, just in September.
Hmm.
They snuck into the playoffs, earned their way in, beat the Astros, took the Guardians to 5 games. Took their fans on a magic carpet ride, and obviously everybody was bought into the Tigers going into this season. They're like, all
Hmm.
right, cool. We're gonna be, it looks like we're gonna be a steady playoff team here. Now they're back at zero almost again. If you miss
It's
the
crazy.
postseason, you're back at zero
Yep.
compared to a year ago, which is crazy, insane. Um, Moving along here, just looking at the other standings here. Big shout out to the Seattle Mariners, who, listen, I know Bob Nightingale put it in the refrigerator already that they're going to win this division. Hold on a second. I'm not sure, but they went into Houston, swept the 3-game series against the Astros. Super impressive. And now they're one of the hottest teams in the sport. And currently, they have the 2 seed in the American League. So if the season ended today, the Seattle Mariners would win the division, and they would have the week off, and they would have to wait for their opponent. Uh, Looking at everything else, like I said, the other thing, because listen, I mean, the Dodgers, unless the Dodgers collapse here at the end, they're gonna be the 3 seed. They're gonna win the division. They're gonna have to play either Cincinnati, which right now holds the last spot, the Mets, Arizona, and I guess I'll throw the Giants in there, even though I think they just blew their chances over the weekend. But and even how about shout out the Marlins? They're not mathematically eliminated either. They're still in it going to the last week. How about it? And they're 9-1 in their last 10 games. But this National League wild card is so interesting to me. Well, I mean, look, the 4 and 5 seeds, the Cubs and the Padres are pretty locked into their spots at this point. They're gonna play each other. San Diego is going to have to go to Chicago and play a 3-game series. It's that 6 seed that's so interested to me. And I started kicking around as a Dodger fan, because I had to put my Dodger hat on for a little bit. I started kicking around this question of, who would you rather face if you're the Dodgers? And I got to be honest with you, like I think it's the Mets. I'd want to play the Mets because of the inexperienced starting pitching they have. It hasn't been good all year, and they're just a reeling ship right now.
Hmm.
Now, if they do find a way to win some games here and get in, then they have a little bit of momentum going. But I want no part of a Cincinnati Reds team that snuck in, you know, is going to go to Dodger Stadium next week with house money. Just, hey, you know what? Nobody thought we'd be here. Fuck it, why not? Let's just throw our shit against the wall and see what happens here.
Hmm.
I want no part of that. And plus, Hunter Green can beat you in one game, and then all of a sudden the Dodgers got to win two. But
Yeah.
um, I don't want any part of Arizona either. I don't. I really don't. But um, this wild card is so fascinating. This NL wild card is so fascinating to me, specifically the sixth spot, because there's three teams going into the last week that are fighting for one spot. And again,
Hmm.
that's good for the sport.
Is there, kind of before we move on to the next segment, who do you think those three wild card teams are going to be? Got one
I
week to
think
go. Who's your money on?
Cubs, Padres. I just gave that away. I don't think they're
Yeah.
moving spots. Um, I think Cincinnati's going to get it.
Ooh, okay.
I think
I like
Cincinnati's
that.
going to get that last spot.
It makes sense.
They have a very favorable schedule. They're home, and they have all the momentum right now too. They swept the Chicago Cubs in a 4-game series at home. They have an off day today, and then their final 3 games at home is against the Pirates. And don't get fooled by seeing the Milwaukee Brewers on their schedule, and they have to go to Milwaukee. If the Brewers do what they're supposed to do and take care of business against their series, the Brewers are gonna have nothing to play for
Hmm.
by Friday. They'll have the best record in the National League wrapped up, and they will not have to. Those 3 games against Cincinnati is not going to have to mean anything for them, which means Cincinnati's going to go all out. I don't like what I've seen from the Mets. I think they're just a bad team, and we've seen it for a large sample size over the summer. And I just think the Cardinals are. I mean, the Dodgers have a 3-game series against the Diamondbacks starting tomorrow. I think the Dodgers will take care of that. I think, but I think it's gonna go to Cincinnati. I think it's really gonna go to Cincinnati, and the Reds are gonna go to Dodger Stadium next week, and that should be fun. But not for me because I don't like when teams like that get into the postseason because they have a chip on their shoulder. They have a whatever. Let's just you know throw our stuff against the wall and see what happens. But I do think the Reds are going to get that last spot, and they're deservingly of it. They would be a deserving team to get into the postseason.
Absolutely. I agree.
What do you think? You think it's going to be the Reds, or are you
I
still
do think
giving
it's
it
going to
to
be the
the Juan Soto led Mets?
No, I think it was going to be the Reds, man. They're playing good baseball right now, and they have all the momentum. And I think momentum plays a huge key right now. And I can't bet that the Diamondbacks can make up. What is it? How many games are they out?
They're only a game behind.
Okay, they're a game behind.
They have
It's
the Dodgers and they have San Diego this weekend,
I
which the
think
Dodgers and Padres are still playing for something this week.
that's what scares me a little bit with Arizona. So and like you said, the Mets are sinking ship right now. Yeah, I'm going Cincy.
Who would have ever thought the biggest Met accomplishment this year would be winning the Juan Soto sweepstakes?
Me, that too.
Yeah, that's true. That's crazy. But
It is crazy.
uh,
It's very
yeah.
crazy.
Let's go Mets. I hope they get in. So
Absolutely.
yeah, I say that and then freaking uh, Francisco Lindor and Juan Soto hit 600 for the series, and the Dodgers are out in 2 games. They hit 800 for the
Yeah.
2 games at Dodger Stadium, and the Dodgers are home.
Combined
So
for 12 homers.
exactly, they both go 4 for 4 each night, with like 3 home runs apiece. And then their rookies, throws a 9 inning shutout. It can happen, but
Absolutely.
I don't know. It's kind of pick your poison at this point. You want the inexperienced red team with all the momentum, or you want this Mets team that, as bad as their season has gone, they rally to somehow get in the final week and have
And
some sort of momentum.
and they're still a good team, man.
Right, exactly.
You got players on there who can kill you at an instance. So
Pete Alonso a year ago, Met fans wanted nothing to do with him in New York anymore. They wanted him out of town because he had a garbage regular season.
Hmm.
Postseason happens, turned into a Mets postseason hero, and now he's beloved by the fans again, and he got a contract extension because of it.
Absolutely.
You never know. You never know.
Nope.
So can't wait for Michael Conforto to salvage this season and win NLCS MVP this year. So, no, I'm just kidding. All right, let's talk about our teams. We'll save the Dodgers and specifically Kershaw for last, but let's start with the New York Yankees. They look pretty good.
They they do, man. Again, I mean, kind of just opening up. I can't complain. Um, this team this team going into September, I had a lot of questions questions about it. And I mean, even after the All Star break, um, I was a big fan of what they did at the All Star break, and then moving forward, they now have the second best record in the American League. That doesn't mean much standing wise because they still have the wild card. They still got to go through because, of course, the Blue Jays have a better record. Um, but I truly can't complain about where they're at. They're 7-3 in their last 10. They're on a 2 game winning streak. Um, Looking at their schedule, just in the last 2 weeks, I'll kind of bring it back to Detroit when we were talking about them. They lost 2 out of 3 to Detroit, and then they won the series against Boston. They won the series against Minnesota. They won the series against Baltimore, taking 3 out of 4, and that brings them up to right now, which is an off day tonight, and then 3 game series against the Chicago White Sox, and then another 3 game series against Baltimore. The Yankees have arguably the easiest schedule to end the season. 3 games in Chicago, the White Sox, and then 3 games against Baltimore. Take care of business and kind of just, I mean, the Yankees are kind of locked in that 4 spot right now. I don't see a world where they overtake Toronto. If they do, I mean, there is technically a chance that they could. I mean, if the Yankees go 6-0 in their last 6 games, and you look at Baltimore's schedule, just with the way that they line up here, Boston is playing for a playoff spot. They want to get in. They have the second wild card right now. They're only up a game. 3 against Boston, 3 against Tampa Bay. There's a chance. There
Go Red
really is.
Sox. Is that what you're saying here? Go Red
I
Sox.
Go Red Sox, man. Go Red
Yeah.
Sox. Absolutely. Um, and then I'm going to be a huge Tampa fan too. So there is a chance, but I don't see it happening. So the Yankees are locked in that 4 spot. They're probably either going to play Boston or
The
Detroit,
Astros, Detroit,
Houston, Astros, whatever that looks like.
Cleveland.
Cleveland is in there, but they have home field advantage having the first wild card spot. So whoever that wild card series is against is going to come to New York, and then you got to go to Toronto after that. So iffy after that, but we're not looking there quite yet. The Yankees have been playing phenomenal baseball. They've been getting hits 1 through 9, man. I mean, all of them. I can't express enough how impressed I've been with this lineup. Trent Grisham has been on a different level. Just these guys are just hitting, man, and it's exactly what you want. Carlos Rodon looks phenomenal, and I beg and plead with that man to please continue that into the postseason because we need it. Max Fried, he looks good after his little stint. Um, yeah, I mean, the biggest complaint right now is that third starter, right? So you go into the postseason, you need a good 1 through 3, basically. That third starter worries me a little bit. It's either going to be Cam Shittler or it's going to be Luis Heel. Now, this is kind of like the NL wildcard situation. Cam Shittler, who has been great all season long,
Who?
but inexperienced. Yeah, exactly. He's been inexperienced. He's a rookie. It's his first year up in the majors, but he's been phenomenal. Now you look at Luis Heel. He's come back. He has experience. He won Rookie of the Year last year. I mean, he was gearing up to be a solid piece in this rotation. He has not looked great. He has kind of shit the bed ever since coming back from TJ. I don't know, man. And there's no clear cut winner right now. There really isn't. Do you go with the experience or do you ride the hot arm of the rookie who's been great all year? It's hard to say, but obviously that's up. That's gonna be whatever Boone decides, and we go from there. But overall, man, I mean, I can't complain. Yankees are in the first wild card spot, up 4 games, and they have the easiest schedule. So they're almost a playoff lock. I think their magic number is down to 4 games. Um, yeah, just take care of business, and then we'll talk about more next week, looking at the postseason bracket. But as of right now, just take care of business, and I can't complain. And like I said, with the easy schedule that they do have, I got to think they do that just with the way they've been playing. So that's kind of my 2 cents in the Yankees. It's not much, but I'm happy with where they're at.
There you go. All right. I've waited long enough. Let's shift over the Dodgers, but specifically Clayton Kershaw. He obviously announced last Thursday that, well, really the team did.
Hmm.
The team announced that he was retiring Thursday. Um, so let me actually no, I'll save that for when I get to the actual Dodgers. Um, so he everything happened so fast last week. The team announces he's retiring Thursday afternoon, and then all of a sudden you look at the schedule and it's like, oh shit, like his last start is Friday. Like that's it. So the tickets skyrocketed for that game Friday. It was such an emotional scene there. I already knew going into that place that I was going to be in tears, and sure enough, that's what happened. Um, However, I'm going to touch upon specifically that game Friday night because it was such an emotional day, but it was also very theatrical that whole game, and I'll get into detail why. So Clayton Kershaw, he announces he's going to retire. Obviously, there's a lot of an emotion all over my Twitter, Instagram feed, which is nice because a couple weeks ago it was a lot different. So I'm glad it was back to the sports stuff. But um, um, obviously, the first thought in my head was, I can't believe this is actually happening. Um, this has been a possibility for the last couple seasons now, and for I never would have thought that it would just happen out of nowhere. Just on a random Thursday afternoon before the going into the final weekend home series, the Dodgers just said, "Hey, Clayton Kershaw, he's retiring at the end of the season. His final start is tomorrow. Thanks." Um, I have never seen, and Clayton Kershaw, he's done a good job of hiding his emotions. Obviously, we've all seen the pictures of him, with his hands in his face after a bad postseason start. Those pictures, unfortunately, are going to live on forever. But he's done a good job. You've never really seen him like emotional or in tears. It hurt me watching his press conference Thursday afternoon, seeing him kind of break down a little bit, show his emotion. Um, I think it hit him for the first time that holy shit, this is actually happening. And the way it was set up, he went into the big press conference room inside Dodger Stadium. You had all the media people in there, and you also had the Dodger players that were taking up like 2 or 3 rows, just sitting there watching. A lot of the Dodger players were emotional as well. Kike Hernandez was tearing up a bit in there. Miguel Rojas was very emotional. Even Freddie Freeman, who's only played with him for 3 seasons. When he went outside to begin his warm up, some reporters started asking him some questions, and he got choked up himself talking about him. So it was very emotional Thursday night, and then we come back Friday for his final start, and again, baseball is the only sport like this to me where like it is so theatrical what happened. So he comes out to do his normal warm up like around 6:20, 6:25. Immediately gets a big standing ovation, gets a big roar from the crowd. They're getting all excited. He goes through his normal warm up routine and everything. And there's one point. Well, before I continue, there was also a cool moment Thursday night, and again, only baseball can paint a picture like this. After he had just done his press conference announcing his retirement. He goes out onto the field, to kind of warm up, get ready for the next day, just do whatever he has to do. I guess part of his retirement gift was being able to skip PFPs because he was not out there doing PFPs. Instead, he was at one point uh, on the grass by the dugout, sitting next to his oldest son, and they were just watching it together. And somebody got a cool picture of just the two of them watching with the entire Dodger Stadium in the background. That was a good picture. That was cool to see. So going back to Friday, he goes through his normal routine and everything. Obvious, and there's at one point, and he does this before every game, but it just felt so different knowing that this was the last time. Um, he he always sits on the grass, just before he goes to throw his final bullpen before he goes out there. He's just sitting on the grass and just soaking it all in. I have that video. I posted it on my story. He's just sitting there, and you can tell that he's kind of he's doing the best he can not to let the moment get to him. But you can almost tell a little bit, like, damn, like he knows that this is it. And again, it was very, 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 very touching and very emotional. So then he goes out and starts. And listen, I wanted Kershaw to go out there and pitch 7 scoreless innings, have 10 plus strikeouts, and really give the Dodger fans the farewell. It was very clear very on that wasn't going to happen. Of course, he gets an 0-2 count on Heliot Ramos, and then he freaking bangs one in to the left field pavilion, and all the energy that was in the building completely sucked it out. Completely sucked it out. But then he got a walk and like another base hit. He was able to strand 2 runners, keep the Giants at bay in the first inning. It was very obvious and it was very clear by the second inning he wasn't going to go deep into this game. He was already like at 60 pitches. It was like, oh shit. He's not going deep into this game. So, but he was able to get a couple quick outs. Fast forward to the top of the 5th inning. Again, this goes back to the theatrical part of everything. His first start in his first game at Dodger Stadium in 2008, struck out the first batter he faced and Skip Schumacher. Then in his final in his final uh his final at bat was against Rafael Devers. Struck him out on a slider, on a 2-2 slider, got him looking, and then Dave Roberts comes out and he takes him out. And immediately, once you saw Dave Roberts get up from his seat, it was like, oh my God, this is it. It's over. Like, this is it. And then the crowd, everybody gets up on their feet. They start giving him a standing ovation. They go through everything. I'm crying again. A couple other people in the couple rows are crying too. I'm taking pictures. I'm doing everything I can. I'm trying to get videos. The ovation goes on basically the whole time they're in the commercial break, because by the time it was over, Eduardo Henriquez came in. All right, he gets the next 2 outs. We go to the bottom of the 5th inning. At the time, the Dodgers were losing 2-1, and they took Kershaw out, meaning that if that score would have held up, or if the Giants would have continued to pile on runs, Clayton Kershaw would have got tallied with that loss. And going into this final game, I knew, what I just said a second ago. I wanted, in a perfect world, he would have gone out there 7 scoreless innings, shutout innings, 10 plus strikeouts. I knew that wasn't going to happen. I just didn't want him to get tallied with the loss. That is the only thing I didn't want to happen. I would have been completely fine with either obviously a win or a no decision. I just did not want the loss. We go to the bottom of the 5th inning. Robbie Ray is still out there. He gets the first 2 guys out, and then a couple guys get on, and then Shohei Ohtani comes up to the plate, hits an opposite field, no doubt shot, 3-run home run into the Dodger bullpen, and the Dodgers go up 4-2, and most importantly, getting Clayton Kershaw off the hook for the loss. And I thought about this after everything was done. It was again, this goes back to the theatrical point I was making to you earlier. When Shohei Ohtani and then Mookie Betts hit back to back home runs on the very next pitch. I was screaming. I was excited because I was on my break of my time, and then I started crying again because I thought about this immediately. Um, Shohei Ohtani, and I'm telling you, man, he has a thing of coming up in these big moments and delivering, and he did it again Friday night. He got Clayton Kershaw off the hook for the loss, and I thought about this immediately. Shohei Ohtani hit the home run. You know, he got high fives from everybody in the dugout, and he gave Clayton Kershaw a big hug after that moment. And for me, I couldn't help but think you had the old face of the franchise in Clayton Kershaw passing the baton to the new face of the franchise, Shohei Ohtani. And that got me very emotional. And again, it goes back to everything I'm talking about with baseball's a beautiful game. And you saw that again Friday night. Uh, Dodgers won. I was very happy about that, and they clinched the playoff spot. So it was very emotional, a very emotional scene. He went out after the Dodgers had won, and he talked to the crowd and gave like a little speech, and they were interviewing after the game. It was very emotional. Uh, they even took out the rubber from the pitching mound and presented it to Clayton Kershaw again, and I got to see that. So that was kind of cool. So um, I'm not gonna spend too much time on giving my thoughts on Kershaw because I kind of did that last week. I wanted to just kind of mention everything Friday night. Kyle, if you want to give your thoughts here, you can, and then I'm gonna go back to my Dodgers.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You hit it right on the head, man. I mean, it wasn't a shocking news break, obviously, because this is something we've talked about on the podcast, like talking about the Dodgers preseason previews and things like that, saying, when we get to the rotation, we talk about Kershaw and we're like, oh, well, we don't know how many years he has left, and then we move on. Um, so this has been coming up for quite some time, but you were absolutely right. Like, it happened so abruptly that it was like, yo, I feel like I'm getting gypped because I didn't have enough time to soak in more of one of the all-time greats. So for me, immediately when I found out that Kershaw was retiring, it was one of those things where no matter what team you play, I mean, fuck, the Dodgers killed my Yankees in the World Series last year. You really think I want to watch some Dodger games? But it's one of those things where I don't give a shit about that. I want to watch an all-time great in his final start. So I obviously tuned into the game. There was a few messages we sent back and forth in the group chat, and then obviously just it's one of those things that you just soak in, and I say it with everybody, but Kershaw is different for me because although like I didn't grow up a Dodger fan, I grew up a baseball fan. So when I see this kid coming up, Clayton Kershaw, and I'm a kid myself, and I'm like, yo, this guy's insane, and I'm tuning into Kershaw starts so every so often, obviously not as much as my Yankees, but Kershaw's a guy who I absolutely love. I mean, he's a role model to everybody. He plays the game with integrity and um, just an all time gamer, man. He's a baseball lifer, and those are the type of guys that you can get behind. So I was obviously tuning into his final start, and obviously, like I wasn't as emotional, but like I there was that time where I was like, you know what, I'm soaking this last start in. I'm watching every one of Clayton Kershaw's pitches, which is what I did, and can't complain, man. Farewell to an all-time great, and obviously, um, the season's not quite over, but it felt a little over, if that makes sense. Um, Kershaw is just I can't say enough about him. I'm not going to go into his stats. I'm not going to do anything like that because we're going to be talking about that in a few years when he gets inducted into the Hall of Fame. So I'll save that. But for now, basically, congrats to an all-time great. Farewell. It was such a beauty watching you over the last however many years, man. I mean, um, huge part of my childhood. Clayton Kershaw was, and congrats to him, and I wish him the best in retirement.
And if he was a huge part of your childhood, you can only imagine what he was for mine.
Absolutely.
I mentioned this Friday afternoon when I recorded. Um, uh, Ever since I discovered what a baseball was and what the Dodgers were, Clayton Kershaw was always on that team. It's going to be so weird next year when we come back for spring training and we begin the season. Clayton Kershaw's not going to be out there. That's just so weird to me. My whole life um, has just been Clayton Kershaw is somewhere on the pitching sheet. So it's gonna
Yep.
be so weird not seeing him on the field. But um, just real quick before I get into the rest of the Dodgers here, um, he did not win his first championship until very late in his career. I think it was like
Mhm.
his 15th or 14th season in 2020, and it was so cool that even though he wasn't a part of their championship win last year, for him, and I have it on video too, for him to have that moment with the parade and the rally at Dodger Stadium, never gonna forget that. That's outside of the actual things he did on a baseball field, winning MVPs, World Series games, hitting a home run on opening day. Just hearing him talk, and for him to finally have his moment with a World Series parade in last November, never gonna forget that. I'm never gonna forget that. But again, it's Kershaw was, and that's the other cool thing too. When they read off his plaque in Cooperstown, and he's eligible to get inducted in 2020 in 2031. When they're reading off his plaque, the most important thing it's gonna say on there: he was only a part of one team, one
Yep.
organization, the Los Angeles Dodgers, and that's so freaking cool, man. I'm gonna get chills when they read off his plaque, but I'm gonna probably start crying again for like the 100th time when they say Clayton Kershaw, 2008 through 2025. That's it. Just with the Dodgers, Um, so, uh, I've, LA it's an all time sports city. I had to do this 10 years ago next year, which is crazy already. When Kobe retired, had to do it with Kershaw, and I'll touch upon this just right in a moment. But Thursday was an all time LA day, man. If you had LA friends, you should have checked up on them, because you had Anjay Kopitar of the LA Kings, who's played 20 years for us as well, announced his retirement the same day, and Clayton Kershaw like an hour earlier before that. So it was an all-time day in LA sports. But just shifting over to the Dodgers a little bit, I mentioned it to you before we press recorded here that it was an emotional week for me. My emotions were all over the place. Meaning, so starting a week ago, last week, a week ago, it was the final homestand of the Dodgers regular season. They had a big 3-game series against the Phillies. And of course, at the time, the Dodgers had an opportunity, if they would have swept the Phillies, to get back closer to catching them and overtaking them for the second spot and getting the bye. Obviously, that didn't happen. They lost 2 out of 3, and the big part of it was because their bullpen melted down in the first 2 games. And uh, you know, I was pissed off Monday, Tuesday, because their bullpen had blown um, the 2 games, and I actually got to see the Dodgers tie the game in the first game. Andy Pages did something that no one has done off of Duran really all season. Hit a home run off of him. He hit a solo shot into the Dodger bullpen to tie the game. I was going crazy. I was like, all right, cool, we're back into this. The Dodgers are hopefully going to come back and win this thing. Didn't happen, and then the Phillies, on top of it, clinched their division Monday night and celebrated in our club, in the opposing clubhouse, and they took the pictures on the field and everything. And there was a ton of Philly fans that were there in the front row, including the Phillies Karen group that showed up too. So, and even an Eagles chant broke out too.
Oh
So
God.
yeah, an Eagles chant broke out
Terrible.
too. Yeah. So it was Philadelphia pride all Monday night, and then they blew the game again in similar fashion Tuesday night, and then Wednesday they were able to bounce back, take 1 game, and then fast forward to Thursday, I had um uh the retirement day with Kershaw and Kopitar, so my emotions were all over the place again. And then I was like, all right, we got to keep this momentum against the Giants. They took 3 out of 4, and then they bullpen blew the game again Sunday yesterday. But uh, the Dodgers were able to get their magic number down to 3. Uh, so I am rooting like hell for the Milwaukee Brewers tonight, because they're coming out to San Diego and they have a 3-game series. So if the Milwaukee Brewers win tonight, the magic number will be down to 2, and all the Dodgers have to do is win their game tomorrow night against Arizona and hope that San Diego falls to Milwaukee again and this division is over. But So I don't want to complain too much because they did win a series against um the Giants, which of course they're still fighting for a spot as well, even though I think their chances just got ruined over the weekend. I understand the bullpen blew the two games against the Phillies, but they were in those games and they actually outplayed the Phillies in all aspects except for their bullpen, which is a big part of the equation. I'm not taking anything away from that, but you know, I was very worried about how this Dodger team was going to go up against the Phillies. I came out of that series, yes, they lost 2 out of 3, but I came out of that series okay, not too bad. You know, if they can just clean up some things with their bullpen, they'll be okay. They match very well against the Phillies, um, and they should have left Emmett Sheehan in there a little longer. They took him out, I think, or I forget what day it was. It was the Shohei Ohtani start. They took him out too early, even though they said that he's only gonna go 5 innings. But still, like these games matter, man. Like just
Yeah.
try and push him a little bit, you know. So, uh, yeah, so the Dodgers going into this final week can clinch the division and clinch home field advantage in the wild card, which that's not basically at this point. If the Dodgers win their division, they'll be home next week for the three wild card games. If they don't, if they collapse here at the end, and if the Padres rally and win the division, then the Dodgers got to go out on the road to Chicago. So, uh, like I said, man, my emotions were all over the place all week. The final homestand to my two favorite players of all time announcing their retirement, and then bullpen blowing the two games against the Phillies, and then needing the games against the Giants, and they were able to perform well against the Giants. But again, they had an opportunity to sweep the series yesterday. They couldn't do it, but I can't complain too much. The Dodgers have played better, which is what I have liked to seen. And again, something special about September 19th in Dodger history, because September 19th a year ago was the famous 50-50 game from Shohei Ohtani in Miami when he went like 5 for 6 or something, had like 3 home runs and had a crazy offensive game. And then this year, September 19th was Clayton Kershaw's last start at Dodger Stadium. So kind of special there. And I'll leave it here with this and we'll call it a day. You know, this was the other thing, and man, this is a depressing episode here with the Dodgers this week. But I'll leave you here with this. And again, I love the Dodgers, and I think about them in a historical point. I know a lot about their history, so I'm gonna leave you here with this, and it really bummed me out. The other night when Kershaw announced that he was retiring. So I'm gonna paint you this picture here. Let's go back to like 10, 12 years ago, like around the early 2010s, middle 2010s, like 2014, 2015 range. These were the people that were roaming around Dodger Stadium on a nightly basis. You had Vin Scully in the broadcast booth doing play by play. Next to him, you had the Hall of Fame legendary announcer Jaime Jarrin in Spanish and the legendary Dodger Fernando Valenzuela doing analysis. They were doing it next to Vin Scully in Spanish. Going down to the bottom seats, you had Fernando Valenzuela and you had Tommy Lasorda and Don Newcomb sitting by the Dodger dugout watching the games and hoping the Dodgers could win. And on the mound, you had Clayton Kershaw in his prime pitching every fifth day. Fast forward to 2025, Vin Scully retired in 2016. Don Newcomb passed away in 2019. Tommy Lasorda passed away in 2021. Vin Scully passed away in 2022. Jaime Jarrin retired in 2023. Fernando Valenzuela passed away last year in 2024. And this year, Clayton Kershaw in 2025 retired. There's been some big names that have left Dodger Stadium, and that really bummed me out the other night because we've had so many Dodger icons and legends that have gone through Dodger Stadium for years, and now they're all gone. But, you know, new names will emerge, new legends will emerge. I get the fortunate I'm so fortunate to see number 17 leading off for the Dodgers every single night and taking them out every 6 day. Uh, New legends will be created, but at one point you had Vince Scully, Fernando, Jaime Jarrín, Don Newcomb, Tommy Lasorda, and Clayton Kershaw all in the stadium at one point watching each other and doing their jobs to the highest. And now they're no longer gone. Now they're no longer here at Dodger Stadium, and that really bummed me out. But um, salute to Clayton Kershaw on a tremendous career, and I can't wait to see you in Cooperstown, my friend. See you in 5 years. I cannot wait for that. I'll be there in the front row crying like a freaking baby again with my jersey.
It was very beautifully said, man. I couldn't have said it better myself.
Thank you. Unless you got anything else, that's gonna do it for this episode.
I
Somehow I
don't
didn't
think
cry
so.
on this episode. I don't know how I didn't do that.
I don't think so, man. Just one other quick little thing I want to point out. I love how Clayton Kershaw's last start as a Dodger was against the San Francisco Giants.
Absolutely.
That I think that just puts a bow on everything we've talked about, specifically you. Um, but yeah, no, that was something that I really enjoyed. But yeah, to kind of cap everything off, Yankees take care of business. You have a very easy schedule to finish out the season, and yeah, Cal Raleigh, don't hit 62, please. I'm begging.
Oh, he's at 58.
I know. I know. Well,
That's
in
scary.
2022, in 2022 at this time, Judge had 60. So
That's true.
I'm hoping and praying that back at T-Mobile Park for the last six games,
Ooh, the Mariners are
Colorado
home this
and
week.
yeah, Colorado and Los Angeles, please take care of business. So especially the pitching, please just hold down Raleigh, man. That's all I ask. Don't break the only Yankee record that I hold close, near and dear to my heart. So that's it, though.
Well, looking ahead real quick at the Dodger probable starters this weekend in Seattle. So Otani, Snell, and Yamamoto are pitching in Arizona. So you're gonna
Oh,
have I know. So you're gonna have Kershaw, Emmett Sheehan, and Tyler Glasnow this
okay,
weekend.
that's not bad. I'll take
Yeah.
it.
So
I'll take it.
put it to you this way: Clayton Kershaw's final strikeout of his career is gonna be against Kyle Raleigh. How does that sound?
Look, I think that sounds fantastic.
There we go.
That's a win for both of us.
Let's make this more dramatic. Let's make this more dramatic.
Okay.
Kyle Raleigh's gonna be sitting at 61 home runs on Saturday or whenever he
Uh,
starts. Clayton Kershaw's gonna strike him out for his last strikeout and deny him of that prestigious Yankee record. And
well,
Clayton
guess what?
Kershaw's gonna ride into the sunset.
Clayton Kershaw is going to ride into my sunset as well if that fucking happens. I will
He's
go
gonna.
out and buy a Clayton Kershaw jersey if that happens.
There you go. There you
You,
go.
you heard it here. You heard it here.
Okay, it's
But
on. It's on record now. It's on record.
absolutely, I'm hoping and praying that like the Mariners can clinch this division, sit Raleigh, just gear up for the postseason. That's what I'm hoping. But yeah, we'll see. But that's my final thoughts.
All right. Well, we'll see you next week. And next week we're gonna be previewing the wild card series for the postseason, and we've made it. So it's
Insane, man.
crazy. It's
Insane.
crazy. Enjoy the final week of baseball because once it's gone, we're not gonna have it for a while. So
Yep.
uh, enjoy it this week, and you know, really enjoy it. If your team is either out of the postseason contention or they already have like a clinching spot, like the Phillies and the
Yeah.
Brewers or something, really enjoy it because there's a lot of fan bases that are gonna be really stressed out this week. So
Absolutely.
enjoy it that it's not you. And I wish
Yep.
the Dodgers were not in this position where I wish in a perfect world, their bullpen doesn't fuck up all these games over the summer. And the Dodgers are in the 2 seed or the 1 seed, and the division's wrapped up, and I can enjoy just watching these games and the wild card series all next week and get ready for a divisional opponent next Saturday. That's not going to happen. The Dodgers are going to have to win 2 games just to go to the division series. So
Yep.
enjoy these games because it's going to get very stressful here starting tomorrow. Well, really tonight because
Absolutely.
there's a couple teams playing tonight, but
Yeah.
uh, all right. Well, that's going to do it for this episode, and we'll see you next week. Adios.